from TastyPC.tv, and today I'm doing a review of NZXT's H630 Ultra Tower case. Now this is a silence orientated case which can fit two 360 rads. So let's get started. The NZXT H630 is unlike any case that I've ever reviewed before. However, like a lot of silent orientated cases, the front intake fans intake air through ventilation holes down the side. Now in this case, the ventilation holes are down about 2/3 of this side of the case. There isn't any down here along the bottom or across the top, which for me I do think is quite restrictive. Now the H630's got a black strip that runs across the bottom, up the side here, along the top, along that side and along the back. And even though I do really like how it looks, because it isn't symmetrical, because there isn't any long hair across that side, it gives the impression, it makes it look like it has a door even though it doesn't. Like you can imagine there being hinges here, an opening here, the top of the door being here, and then like this being the handle, and for that reason I'm really not very keen at all on how it looks. But saying that, it does have a really nice paint finish. It is a really nice glossy white, it looks really clean and doesn't leave fingerprints at all. Now this case is also available in black. And even though it is mostly made of steel, like the plastic accents do stop it from making it look just like, like a metal box. But we do have a power button and a restart button at the top here, and we've got a button here which controls the rear I/O lighting, which I'll show you when we're looking at the back. We've also got two USB 3 ports and two USB 2 ports, the headphone and microphone jacks, and an SD card reader. I have now removed the front panel to show you the inside. And you can see the two 5.25-inch optical bays and the screws that hold the covers in place. Now, like I showed you a second ago, to keep with NZXT's quirky design, they've only put ventilation down one side, which is fine if you put sound dampening material in the places that haven't been used for airflow, but NZXT haven't, meaning this side here, the bottom and the top, have pretty much only been designed for looks, because they could quite have easily have put ventilation or sound dampening material there or here or at the top. And if you compare this case to something like a fractal design case, even though with those cases there's a lot of missed opportunities, it seems like every part of the cases have been designed for function. Whereas with the H630, I feel like parts of it have just been designed for show, which does irritate me a little bit because of this, it looks like a door, and I'm not very keen on how it looks. But I have to say, the sound dampening material is by far the best that I've seen. And without testing it, I'd have to guess that it beats the much thinner bitumen stuff on the fractal design cases. So the vent at the front has a removable dust filter, just easily pulls off. Although my concern is with this is that with my R4 at the moment, it intakes air through both sides, and I have to clean the dust filter very regularly. And you can fit 3 120mm fans in the front of this, and I see all of that air having to come through this vent. You're gonna have to clean it very regularly, and the front panel is quite a bit of a pain to get off. But I have to say, in NZXT's defence, this is a silent orientated case, so I don't think they'd expect you to be pulling that much air through the vent. So the front panel is made of plastic and has a metal front, which kind of curves round, giving this really sturdy frame. Although this bit here is very weak. The top of the case has a very similar design to the front of the case, with thick sound dampening material across here and vents down two of the sides, but with no vents down the other two sides. And I think this is a bit of a Marmite design. I think that some people will love it and some people will wish that there was more ventilation. But I do think in a silence orientated case like this, it's a step in the right direction. Because if you take a case like the XLR2, the only thing between the fan and your ear is the grille, whereas this case you've got sound dampening material, the roof, and the sideways directed airflow. So even though I do wish there's more ventilation, I do like this top roof section. But with both the top panel and the front panel, you've got separate sections for the cables and ports, meaning that even once you've cable managed it, you can still easily get the panels off. And NZXT have also cut a fill port, which I really like. At the rear of the case you can mount either a 120 or 140mm fan raised or lowered, so you can have it as high or low as you want it, and this would be great for example if you want it lower if you're fitting a radiator in the roof. But you've got 9 PCIe expansion slots, making this case perfect for longer motherboards. Now something NZXT do with a lot of their cases is rear I/O lighting, and I showed you the button to control it when we were looking at the front of the case. Basically there's a white LED here and one here, which allow you to see the cables and ports when it's dark, which I do think is really cool. The bottom of the case has got 4 large rubber feet and a dust filter split into 2 sections, partly for the power supply intake and partly for the bottom fan area. Now, even though this area isn't sound deadened, the fact that it's unrestricted airflow with a dust filter, I'd probably use this as my main intake for the case, put in like 2 120mm quiet low voltage fans there. So the side panel is completely plain, but I have asked NZXT and they said that a windowed one is on the way. So to take it off, all you've got to do is undo the 2 thumb screws and it just comes straight off. And then on the inside it's covered by the same thick sound dampening material found on the top and front panels. And then we've got our first look inside the H630. In the H630 we've got 3 hard drive cages which allow you to fit a total of either 8 hard drives or solid state drives, and the trays are removable from the back. Now these hard drive cages are completely removable and you can choose to have either all 3 in, just the bottom one, just the bottom 2, just the top one, or just the top 2. And they stand on this removable stand which gives you about 60mm of space for fans and a rad. And at the bottom you've got space for to mount either 2 120 or 2 140mm fans, meaning that you could fit either a 240 or 280mm 30mm thick rad with a standard 25mm set of fans, while keeping the stand in place. So if I was going to be using this rig as my workstation, what I'd probably do is put 2 40mm rad in the roof, 2 40mm rad here, and then I could still keep all the hard drive cages in. I have now removed the hard drive cages to show you the cooling options available in the front of the case, and NZXT have included a 200mm fan, and you can fit a second one if you want to. Although, because they've used strange measurements, I think you'll only be able to get another NZXT branded one to fit. I think you'll struggle with any other 200mm fan. I have now removed the 200mm fan, and you can see that you've got space to fit either 3 120mm fans or 2 140mm fans, meaning that you can fit up to either a 280 or 360mm radiator. And I really like that NZXT have done that. It means they've listened to what people want, as a lot of people do mod their cases to be able to fit a 360mm rad in the front, especially as taller cases like the XLR2 can only fit a 240mm rad in the front. I really like that this case is able to do it. Although it does worry me again, fitting 3 120mm fans, if the front ventilation will be enough. I do think that the air will come in through the holes here into the fans. Also, I worry about this bit of metal. I think it's very restrictive, and I do see some people just cutting it off, so the airflow is less restricted. Continuing on my tour around the inside of the H630, you can see the tallest system used with the optical bays. I do really like it. It is very sturdy, and it's definitely better than a lot of designs I've seen. So the roof is a very similar design to the front. You can fit either 3 120mm fans or 2 140 or 200mm fans, meaning that once again you can fit a 360mm rad in the roof as well as the front. Although if you do fit a 360 rad in the roof, it will cut into the optical bays. So I will have a play with thicknesses and see what you can fit once I've got the motherboard fitted. So then, covering some of the measurements, in the H630 you can fit either a mini ATX, micro ATX, ATX, eATX or XL ATX motherboard. You can have a CPU cooler with a height of up to 190mm, and looking at graphics card length clearance, with the hard drive cages gone, you've got pretty much unlimited space. With a Mint, you've got up to about 350mm of space to work with. So the motherboard tray actually slopes down to allow you more space when mounting components, but it means at the back you've also got plenty of space around the board to cable manage. Looking at the power supply area, you can see the rubber stands for mounting a short power supply and the rubber stands for mounting a longer power supply. Now I want to talk about cable clearance if you have me fitting a radiator in the bottom. Firstly, I want to say that I wouldn't put a 140mm base radiator in the bottom here, because these cutouts are suited for 120mm fans, and I just think that this metal would be very restrictive for 140mm fans. But just putting a 240mm rad in the bottom, just to show you. So with a 160mm power supply, you can see that you've got plenty of space for cable management. However, with a 200mm power supply, you don't have a lot of space at all, especially if you want the end tank this side. Now, I'm sure some people could still run the cables with it like this. However, if I was going to have a 240mm radiator in the bottom, I would go with a short power supply just to be sure. So I have now put some radiators in the case just to see what will fit. I've currently got an XT45 360 rad in the roof, and with this motherboard and a 45mm thick radiator, you can't actually have the 8-pin CPU cable plugged in. So with this motherboard you can only fit a thin 30mm thick rad on top. So what I'd like to have seen NZXT do is offset the fan mounts to allow for a thicker rad, and obviously they won't have to worry about appearance because of this secondary roof. And then I would like to have them to have screwed in the optical bays with screws rather than rivets, so you can remove it to still allow you to fit 360 rad. Because we have a 360 rad in the roof, even with a thin one, you can't really make use of the bottom optical bay, so you can only put short things in the optical bays like fan controllers. But with the front of the case you can fit an 80mm thick like monster rad and push-pull, although I did have to fit it upside down, so you might have some trouble with air issues. But before I did this, I did run the fans for a little while, and that's when I noticed that my fears are in fact a reality, because all the air does go in through the holes here into the radiator and in the hole from the top of the optical bays down as well, and hardly any air actually comes in from the vent at the front, so this radiator pretty much just circles air around, which makes me worry a lot for the rad in the roof, because if you've got a negative air pressure, the hot air is just going to pretty much pull back into the case. So this case really, despite all its features on paper, is in reality it's only really good if you're going to be using 4 200mm fans. So what I would do if I was going to be running this case personally is get like a aftermarket noise dampening foam, cover some of the vents, cover the holes here, the holes at the front of the optical bays, and then it would be a great case. It would work well with those modifications. But as the case doesn't come with those modifications, I'm afraid it can't save it from getting a bad review, and it really does disappoint me, because this case has got so many features on paper and it's so great on paper, but in reality it's just really let down by that. And then looking at the back of the case, I've got to say I think this is an area that NZXT have done really well. So then firstly, the hard drive tray is removed from the back of the case, meaning that you don't have to take off both side panels to be able to access them. But this case also lets you mount 2 solid-state drives to the back of the motherboard tray. But unlike with cases like the Defiant R4, rather than having to remove the motherboard to remove the solid-state drives, all you've got to do is undo the thumb screws, and then this tray just slides straight off. And I have to say I really do love this feature, and I wish that more cases had it. But we've also got this fan hub here, which lets you power your fans, and is powered by Molex. And I have to say that features like this really show that NZXT are trying to go above what the other competitors are offering. But there is plenty of space for cable management and plenty of grommets and cable tie holes. And I have to say, looking at just this side of the case individually, I do think it's pretty much perfect. So concluding my thoughts on the NZXT H630, I have to say that on paper this case is perfect. I mean, it's smaller than a Fractal Design XLR2 while being able to fit bigger radiators. It can fit 2 360 rads in it, and it's got features like having sound dampening material in the roof while a radiator is fitted, and like the solid drive mounts on the fan hub. And on initial inspection, I did really love this case. I mean, it's got all the features that I look for when I'm shopping for a case. Now, I wasn't so keen on the appearance, but that's just like personal opinion. But this case has got great build quality and great features. But then, after looking at it in more detail, I realised that this case is just kind of fundamentally flawed. I mean, the air just seems to circulate in too many places. And I think really that the front and the top need to be completely redesigned. And I don't know if that's being picky or maybe too tough on it. Maybe just my standards are too high. But for me, with this case like it is right now, I couldn't use it. I think really it's only saving grace is that if a fan on the rear and 2 on the bottom, then at least the airflow is going to move through it. So on to whether I give this case an award or not. Well, obviously this is my first time ever working with NZXT, and I'd love to work with them again in the future. But I have never and will never given a product an award if I don't feel like at the time it deserved it. And the question I've got to ask myself is, would I recommend this case to someone? And with some modifications, then yes, it's a great case. But with it is how it is right now in this form, I can't. So for that reason, I'm not going to be giving the NZXT H630 an award, which is a massive shame because this case has got so many features, like so many boxes are ticked. It's a silent orientated case, it's not unrealistically big, and you've got the option of either having two 360 rads in it and two solid state drives at the same time, or two 40 rads, a dual bay res, 8 hard drives and two solid state drives in it. And I mean, this case has got so many features, it could be so popular on the market, and with just a few small tweaks, it could be worthy of the Tasty Award. But it just seems like its biggest features are its flaws, and I really hope that if anyone from NZXT is watching this, you take this as like constructive feedback or constructive criticism and and do something with it, because otherwise it will be the other silent orientated case manufacturers like Fractal Design, Antec and Anoxia who, tweak this case and make their own like perfected version of this case, which is hugely popular. And I do want to make it clear that even though I didn't give it an award, this isn't an awful case at all, and if you are willing to modify it, maybe get some like sound dampening material or some plexi and block the holes that are the issue, or maybe cut away some of the metal covering the fan mounts, then this case is great and I would recommend it to you. But with it how it is right now, I just don't feel like it's quite there yet. But that was my review of NZXT's H630 case. If you liked the video, hit the like button, don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching.